Merry Christmas. You know, I've spent most of my adult life as an insider in the healthcare system. As a physician for more than 30 years and more lately as a priest for more than 20, I've called on people at their hospital bedside, and all along I have enjoyed the privilege of my uniforms of credentialed power, stethoscope and stole, that allow me to pass through the doors of authority and access with relative impunity. But more recently, I am, shall we say, of an age that necessarily requires I see the system from the other side, as a patient in need of surgical repair of body parts that are showing their signs of aging, or to have some preventive surveillance procedure aimed at early detection. It's been a good lesson for me to be on the other side of things, and one I think every healthcare professional should have as part of their formative training. If you've ever had a surgery, I suspect your experience went something like this. You arrive early. You hear your name called in the waiting room. You're shown to a small drape-drawn section of a larger suite that has many preoperative patients undertaking similar rituals as you. You're told to strip bare, wipe down with antiseptic towelettes, then slip your arms into a laughable scrap of a gown that ties awkwardly in the back, but leaves a good deal of flesh exposed to the beehive of activity around you. Ill-fitting socks with non-slip strips and maybe a warm blanket are meant to be creature comforts in an otherwise Spartan experience. Your belongings go into a plastic bag. They are now the least of your worries. The relays of nurses and doctors coming and going, they try to close your curtain after they leave each time, but there always seems to be a gap for you to be seen or for you to see others in their cells. My point is this: it is all an exercise in vulnerability. And I am reminded of a line from Elizabeth Rooney's poem Unfrocked, in which she says, "My nakedness embarrasses me, Lord." Not a far stretch from Eden's skimpy fig leaves, right? Now, opportunities for our American healthcare system to improve its delivery of care notwithstanding, and I think we can agree we've got opportunities, but notwithstanding, I do think the experience that I've just described, or other vulnerable versions of it, have something to teach us. Our culture eschews vulnerability, lies about it, covers it up, denies it at great cost. Rooney's poem goes on to say, "I am accustomed to some shreds of self-deception, patches of pretense, coverings of conceit. But if we set aside self-deception, pretense, and conceit, we will come to the conclusion and admit to ourselves that to be human is to be vulnerable. We come into the world naked, without a weaponized defense of fangs or venom or camouflage or cover, just an unembarrassed nakedness of newborn glory. And somehow we celebrate this for infants and then spend the rest of our lives striving to hide it away, acclimating instead to the shreds of self-deception. But here is the scandalous gift of Christmas, friends. The gift is that God sees fit to come into the world not as invulnerable and invincible conqueror armed to the hilt, but as an impoverished, unhoused immigrant born to a teen mother in a part of the world which is, even today, famished for peace. This infant Jesus even becomes a refugee in his own right, with his parents fleeing from little town of Bethlehem through Gaza into Egypt to avoid the protuberant ego of a despotic King Herod, whose puffed up chest of power belies a whittling fear of insecure self-doubt. King Herod would kill all the little boys in Bethlehem rather than admit his own vulnerable existence. Which leads me to say, it seems like we haven't yet learned our Herodian lesson yet, because the politics of power-mongering claim to raise up invulnerable saviors bent on correcting what is wrong with the world, but in truth there is little salvific value to be gleaned from hateful violence that inevitably erupts amidst the anxiety-riddled resistance to true vulnerability. In Christmas, God is inviting us to see a different way of being in the world, a different way of life. In Jesus, God is inviting us to see the naked, defenseless infant, not as a sideshow to the main act of modern glory-seeking, but precisely the antidote to it and to our self-deception, pretense, and conceit, if and when we fall prey to the age-old lie of invulnerability that convinces us that violence is the only reasonable path forward. Even as the world seems bent on falling into the fires of chaos and degradation, the church, this cathedral church, exists not as an invulnerable bastion of human glory, but as a beacon of hope. Hope that we humans might yet unfold to a humble way of being like Jesus, and hope that God, dwelling with us, might upend the powers and principalities of consumptive ego in subversive ways. Friends, this is the embodied truth of Christmas. In fact, to wish one another a Merry Christmas is to wish for this embodied Christmas of vulnerability. It is to reclaim our incarnate beauty and vulnerable goodness, which even God sees fit to celebrate. And to hope and trust that God is subverting the wiles of the world as a way of saving the world, even if we cannot see the fully unfurled reality of that just yet. One of the blessings that we employ here at St. Mark's on Sundays at the close of services is drawn from St. Paul's first letter to the early Thessalonian church in northern Greece, which was beset by woes we would find very familiar today, political woes and social and economic and otherwise. I want to share part of this blessing here as a Christmas exhortation to live by such values that are contained in this blessing, to live by these values in our time, and know that when we do, the Christmas story becomes ever more real in our lives and in the world here and now. And I would suggest to you, this blessing, if we live by it, is a pretty good antidote to our own disillusion and despair in these times. So here is the blessing. Go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Encourage the faint-hearted. Support those in need. Be patient with all of them, for this is God's will for you and me. Words to live by in these troubled times. And if we do, I am convinced, friends, we will find a hopeful way forward. Amen.